Hey there, everybody. It's me, Kaylee. You know me. I am tuning you guys all right back into Number One Leading Ladies, a podcast by women, for women. And we focus on not tearing each other down, but instead building each other up. So thank you guys for tuning back in again this week. This week we have a special guest with us, Miss Dawn. And I'm going to let her introduce herself because I can't do it justice. Dawn, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Dawn, and I'm obviously, my last name is Waye. I work with Citygate Property Group. I'm actually one of the owners and partners, principals, and we've been in business for going on 6 years. It's been an exciting, wild ride. I've been in this industry all my life. I started off in nursing school, going to be an RN, and found myself working part-time to fund my vision for nursing school as a receptionist in a property management company. And go figure. I mean, all these years later, this is what I'm doing, and I absolutely love it and haven't regretted my career one time in my life.
That's awesome. Thank you for introducing yourself. I appreciate it. So I'm glad that you have been in it for a while, and I'm really glad to see, too, that you've come from like the very bottom or ground all the way up. So seeing kind of from everybody's perspective all the way is awesome, so you can relate to everybody. Because that was, some frustration I've run into in the past where I worked for an organization that had lots of levels of different people. And, we'd have, I was in sales and we'd have people come in that would manage us and they'd never done it in their life. So, I'm like, you have no idea, man. We need to be out there talking to doctors, not sitting in the office in meetings all Friday, Anyway, I digress. So, so the first question that we always ask our interviewees on my podcast is just one awesome thing that I think helps open up listeners' eyes and ears to the fact that, an entrepreneur, someone that owns their own business, a lot of people I think, oh, well, you probably make a lot of money and you have freedom of time and you can do whatever you want with your schedule. And it's this like really pretty thing. In reality, it's not. So when you were starting your business and until now, kind of what were some of the challenges that you faced getting it up and running? And then how did you overcome those?
Well, I had an opportunity that was pitched at me, and it wasn't on my 5 or 10 year plan. I was working for a company called Night Best. They owned their own assets, and they had a third party, which was a spinoff as a result of them selling assets. So they would, people would ask them, investors would say, hey, will you just keep managing it? So they did that, and they built up probably, 12 to 15 assets that they were doing. And they found very quickly that third-party management is not as fun as owner-managed, right? Because you're dealing with a lot of different personalities, and you're having to listen to that client and what they want rather than just making all the rules, right? So I was their VP of operations. I had left a company that I had been with for 5 years to join them. And never anticipated that they were going to either disband or sell off the third party. And I found myself 6 months later, after leaving a company that I was very happy with, to being offered a position with them to then be asked if I wanted to purchase the properties. Purchase the management portion of it and start my own management company. So through my life, I had always said, I'm going to have my own management company someday, but it was really going to be on a smaller scale. It was going to cater to smaller assets. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would be here in my life. So some of the challenges I faced was, number one, I had to get over the shock of what I had decided that I was going to jump off the cliff and do, which was third-party management, and started off very small. We had 1,200 units. We actually pared back from that. And ended up with, I think it was 850. And then from that moment on, just started to gain steam and never looked back. And so now we have over 17,000 units, about 85 to 90 properties that make that count. But some of the challenges were just like trying to catch the vision. And I had always been an entrepreneur. I had another company called Morning Glory Services that worked on something totally different. But really, that whole excitement of I'm going to have my own business really wasn't there from the very beginning. It was more fright. That's what I experienced, was the fright.
How did you overcome that?
Just kept walking one day at a time. and I really felt like I needed to know things from the ground up, even in that business. So there's not anything, even though as big as we are now, we employ 450 employees. There's probably not one job that I couldn't jump in. It might take me a minute to catch up to speed with it, but I'd really be able to get it accomplished because I've touched and felt everything. I know how to set up the bank accounts. I know how to, do asset management fees. I know how to, put a financial together. So there's a lot that goes into a property management company that people don't even realize.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a few things that as I grow my companies and I'm trying to pull in things from entrepreneurs who are at a much higher level than I am, because for me, our capital business for apartments is not, it's not just doing deals. It's not just one here, one there, whatever. For me, I wanted to build an infrastructure in a company and have a mission, vision, values, have a why, make it very clear to everybody that's involved and not just, partner with whoever. It was very important that our why aligns with our other partnerships. So in the beginning, it was kind of like whoever are good people, that's good, but it's, I want to make this a career. It's got to be more. So you had touched a little bit on vision, and it's really important to know that. And then I think that one thing that really impressed me about you and why I wanted you on here as a role model is because it took me a while and a lot of reading, because I don't have a business degree. I have a nutrition degree. And the degree doesn't matter, but what I'm really good at is not necessarily like scaling the business, and I didn't understand that part of it. So if you want something that you can replicate and grow, you have to be able to have systems and processes. And I noticed very early on in our communication that it seemed everything that you did was very professional, you had a process for everything. And so that was good to see, well, if we're going to do it this way, we're going to do this, and we are not going to do that, knowing what your work principles are. And anyway, so I just want to give you some kudos, but anyone that's listening, that is something that for someone like me who doesn't have an entrepreneurial background, that's hard to learn, but it's like an absolute must. And so kind of when you work with someone and you see that, that's a good sign.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Kaylee. You have to begin with the end in mind, right? And so that's what we did from the very beginning. And we had, marketing and training when we had 1,200 units because we felt that it was necessary to have marketing and training. Now, albeit that was one person at the time, right, that wore both hats. And probably in the very beginning, when you have, 8 people in the corporate office, that's what really makes up your core. Everybody's wearing, multiple hats. And as we've grown, now we have a department, right? That's a marketing department, but we still called it a department back then, even though it was one person. But now we have 5 people that handle the marketing and 2 people that handle the training. And then we actually cross-train and cross-pollinate in between people. And so our res support people, even though they're not necessarily trainers, they're experts at what they do. So we utilize them to go ahead and do training as well. So not one person is just doing all of the training. So,
that's awesome.
Thank
you. Those challenges. And then the challenge of, what did you say? You kept marching on one day at a time. When you came in those challenges, I think that should resonate for everybody listening, because right now it's the end-ish of April, and we're in quarantine, or tyranny as I call it. So we're being kept at home and we can't go anywhere. And so a lot of this for me has been a realization of it's unknown, it's scary, and the only way that we're going to move forward is accepting that and then taking it one day at a time. Literally, we don't know what's going to change next week, tomorrow, whatever. But, so that's one thing that I think stops a lot of entrepreneurs from even trying to become an entrepreneur in the first place, is just that fear of having to deal with the unknown. And that will never change, to tell you the truth, right? So
that's the truth.
It's not all pretty and sparkly and whatever, but if you're willing to take challenges on and accept that you don't always know the answer, but learn and keep pressing forward, you may fail, but whatever, guess what? You'll learn it and do double what you did. So anyway, so just that's the reality, right, of being an entrepreneur. The other question that I always like to ask our guests on the podcast is here, I'll swap them. Actually, what's been your biggest lesson?
Wow, that's a good question. My biggest lesson has been that I'm not perfect. I am going to make mistakes. And the biggest thing is to hit them head on. That when I know I've done something that might cause a problem, I need to address it right there and then. And so I always, especially if I'm dealing, so I'll bring it into the real world. If something has happened and it's not necessarily something I've done, it's something somebody else forgot, and then I have to confront or have communication with the client, that's better sooner rather than later. I don't let anxiousness build up inside of me and like let my stomach grind. I just like look at it from I remove my emotion, which is really hard, especially if you're a woman. Remove the emotion and just deal with it. Okay, this is a business. And there's nothing new under the sun. There's an answer for anything and everything. You just have to find out what that answer is and have a viable solution. And I've found that through my career, when I'm just honest with people and I tell them the truth and I'm sincere, it goes a lot better. Even though it's something that somebody might be upset with or angry, it's better to just get it out of the way right away.
Yeah. And what do you think is the biggest reason why people don't do that?
Fear. It's the fear of, being rejected, fear of being yelled at, fear. It's always rooted to me in fear. But the best thing is that one day at a time, moving it forward. I heard someone say one time, she's a spiritual mom to me. She doesn't know it because I don't know her, but Joyce Myers, I remember her saying one time, if you're afraid, do it afraid, right? If you think somebody's upset with you, ask them, are you upset with me? And put to rest those kinds of thoughts, right? So you can move on.
That seems so simple, but that's so true. Just ask, are you upset with me? Okay. I love that. Okay, cool. Yeah, because I think the fear is like a lot of people, I've got some partners that like they fear being blown up on. Someone like Medusa coming at them, and I'm like, no, I just, here's what I'm dealing with. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I'm hearing. Here's what, And, I want to share that with you guys. And what are we going to do about it? And as long as we come up with something, then it's, what else are you going to do?
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I never have to think about if something's unethical, immoral, or illegal, because I wouldn't go down that path. So I always know that when I'm coming in at a situation, I'm coming at it with like the best resources that I have. And I may not necessarily have the answer, but other people do. And I'm not afraid to humble myself and say, hey, I don't have this answer, but let's work it out together.
That's some good lessons. Now, I guess my last question, I probably have a few more, but we usually ask every time, is what has been your biggest win?
Okay, I think it's a success of wins, right? The biggest win has been that I took the jump, and I did it afraid, and I didn't look back. It was never really in my mind that something would fail. It was like, what's going to happen when it succeeds and it gets this big and I'm out of my resources. But that's when you partner up. That's when you yoke yourself to somebody else that's smarter than you, sometimes brighter than you, but you have a yin and yang. My business partner that I do have is amazing. His name's Pat Smits, and he had a level of education and expertise that was different than mine. But when you yoke them together, they come out well. And so as the years have gone by in Citygate, we have hired the best and the brightest. And I mean, we just scored with an amazing CFO. We have a controller now. Just our back office is amazing. And so those are the biggest wins, is surrounding myself with people that are smarter, know something that I don't know, and that the missing pieces come together as a puzzle, and it gets put together pretty well.
Now, how do you feel, or have you ever felt, whenever you go into that situation? I don't struggle with this, but some people do, as far as when you partner with somebody who knows a whole lot more than you, and first of all, someone that, I don't know how you say it, but they know more than you. They have more experience. Let's just say that. And they have different experience that's valuable. how do you not feel, or do you feel inferior, or how do you feel in that situation, and how do you deal with
Sure.
it?
It took me a little bit. I mean, I came from being, a regional to a VP, and then owning a company that is like very big. And so that can be intimidating. But every step of the way, I had faith, number one, and I kept walking in that. But it took me a little bit to fit into my role. I wasn't born being a president of a company, so I had to learn. And so as long as you have open communication, relationship, and you're willing to hit the situations, head on. So there were times that, I felt very intimidated by the things that Pat knew, but I can guarantee you that if you were to ask him, he'd say, I felt intimidated by some of the things Dawn knew because I'm relationship driven. I can, find the common ground, and it's genuine, and it's so not everybody has that gift either. So I think I overcame that by understanding who I was as a person and what value I had to bring to the plate.
Good. Yeah. I think, so I think all of us probably struggle with this, but for me, I don't have a pride issue when it comes to that, because sometimes people, they don't want to work with people that know more than them, because then I feel like it uncovers some inadequacy in their head, and that's like a pride thing, and they don't want to go there. But when it comes to it's like you said, just like the complete opposite, like being open-minded and listening and being able to take it as a learning experience, I think that that self-confidence, that's the other part of it too, is the self-confidence that you either don't have built yet. I struggle with that part. Like that's my deal, is that there's always like that little guy in your head that's like, you're too young, or you don't know enough, or you don't have enough experience, or whatever, which is also BS. But that's why you have your other person, that knows what you don't know. So anyway, I just think a lot of people struggle with becoming an entrepreneur because of what we talked about. And then I'm glad that you shared with us some biggest lessons that you had, because that helps solve some of those problems. And then when we get to the biggest wins, you have to get past those things to get to big wins like you have. So this has been awesome. Let me see. We have a couple minutes left, and I'm happy about that, because there's so much I want to ask you, but I know this isn't like, Q&A time for me. It's really more about learning your story. So when it came to, I guess, trial and error, so now I'm going to kind of ask about specifically what you do. So when it came to learning and changing and creating an organization and a flow and all this stuff, what do you find are best practices in property management? So for me, I could tell you, here's what we do in due diligence and who's responsible for what. Here's how we underwrite a deal. Here's who's responsible for what. I could break all that down. In your organization, what works?
So I guess it really sometimes depends on what I'm looking at and trying to identify. But if I bring it down to looking at a property and looking at what makes it tick, it comes down to, for me, 4 points. And you may have heard it in the industry. It's price, product, people, and promotion, and not necessarily in that order, but you have to have the right people. And that transcends any business on any level, that if you don't have the right people doing the right thing, it's a battle uphill. So having the right people in place that have the right attitude, that have the right heart, that have the same, they don't have to be the same as me, because I think sometimes our greatness is found in the ability for us to widely work with people that are diverse from us. That opens up the field. If I can only work with people that are in my lane, then that's all the business I'm going to have. But if I can learn to broaden my horizons and work with every type of personality, I might not run with those people after work at 5 o'clock, but I can work with them during the day because we have a common mission and a common ground. The price, the promotion, and the product, are specific to a property. Making sure you have the right product. But again, that can transcend whether you're looking at an apartment or whether you're looking at, the marketing for your own company. What's your product? Does it look nice? Does it have, curb appeal when somebody goes to the website. There's a lot of things that I think transcend that I've learned in the industry that can be brought anywhere. Hopefully I answered that question.
Yeah, well, it seems like one of the biggest themes, and it doesn't matter in any business model, it sounds like, is the people. You know what I mean? I've learned especially, or been reinforced during our quarantine time, that we really only have each other at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So if you can't lean on other people, I mean, you could sit there and normally when things are functioning normally or how they had been, we could have our certain pattern of the way that we do things, the way that we text people, the way that we, order from Amazon automatically, the way that we did stuff, but at the end of the day, when all that breaks down, what's left is people. And when it comes to having opportunities or getting where you want to get, you can't get something without going through another person first. So when it comes to selecting the right people for supporting you, how do you go about doing that? What's your process?
So, again, it's one of those core values. It's relationship. We have people that want to work with our company because they know who we are, and they know our heart, they know our mind, they know what our philosophy is. But I always look for people that have that energy, that have that X factor, that are really passionate about what they do. I might not be passionate about accounting and numbers, although I kind of am, but I may not be. I need to find the person that is passionate about that and that they want to get up every single morning. Life's too miserable to spend it, life's too short to spend it miserable. And so you have to have a reason to get up in the morning and be excited about what you're doing, or else, life's a void. And nothing changes until you change it. So I look for the people that have that X factor in them, that they don't need to always positively be, uplifted, that they can generate that from within themselves.
Very good point. Very good point. Oh my God. Yeah, that's true. Because I would say for me as a business owner, that's one of my largest challenges. Always has been, probably always will be. But as a woman, we have an advantage, I think, that we have intuition. And so whenever we're meeting with people, and honestly, regardless of if it's in person or even on Zoom, you can kind of feel that person's energy. And you kind of know, you know what I mean? So learning how to listen to my intuition has been a big accomplishment for me. But, so that's always been a challenge, is like, I'm also very data driven because it's comfortable and it's controllable and it's something I can lean on. And I read a lot of books, and people are mysterious and unknown and their emotions can fly off the handle at any time. And so that's unpredictable. But I've learned that in putting some data and my guts or my intuition together is a really good combination. And for me too, I grew up listening to a lot of words, that we're going to do this, you're going to have this, da, 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 and didn't materialize, or it did sometimes. But so now I've learned to listen to actions. And what I do is I kind of give someone an opportunity, and then I kind of just like sit back and then I see what they do, if they're self-motivated, if they have passion for that, it'll be really apparent, I think. So, and then again, being kind of open-minded, like, well, I'll give you this, and if it doesn't work out, or you'll come back or whatever, Yeah,
deadlines to me are very important. So, when somebody has a cavalier attitude about a deadline, it's like fingernails on a chalkboard for me. But we all have to deal with negative people. It just happens in our family, in our business, in life in general. And so I've learned to, why is what this person is saying to me, though it's negative, why is it affecting me? Why is it bothering me? So I try to take the nugget, even though the person may be a little bit irritating at the time to me. What is it that's irritating me? Is it something that I feel like I'm inadequate at? And so what they're saying is, really bothering me. So even then, an irritating person then turns into a tool. So.
Correct. If you have that attitude, that's amazing. Like somebody else, I've realized they said something, or the way they behave or whatever. Long story short, end up figuring out, okay, well, what is the core issue here? Because usually it's like here, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, so that behavior, it's not bad or negative or anything. It's a trigger for me because it reminds me of if I ever behaved like that, that shows weakness. And in my past and even now, my fear is to show weakness so that I get taken advantage of like I had before. And I don't want that. So them being so lighthearted and giddy and unprofessional and whatever triggers me, but it has nothing to do with they're doing anything wrong. So it became a tool to teach myself a lesson. And again, I'm digging deeper into that this week to understand that interaction a little bit better. But people are complicated. But I mean, if you just, I have a lot of love to give, and so I have the right intentions, with everything. And so I think if your intentions are good, then, working with people is not going to be that big of a deal to figure out, Okay, so we kind of covered that. I had one more question. What was it? Because we're like almost out of time. So you can say whatever you want. I don't know how to ask this question, honestly. But I've read a lot of different books about property management companies, about owning your own property management company as an owner, advice from other people, lots of things, and it's all different, to tell you the truth. And plus the personal experiences, it's all different. So one thing that we always try to do, whether it's hiring a new employee, whether it's working with a new partner, kind of a little bit different, but is kind of having like an initial interview, of what you kind of want to know to set yourself up for success. And when it comes to talking to a property management company, what kind of interview questions do you think are like the most important to ask or to know?
Well, from the reverse side of the table, the things that I want to know is like, what's an investor's goals, right? I can't even start to begin to form a plan unless I know your goals. So I think the important thing for an owner or a client to know is like, Dawn, what's your goals? Like, where do you plan on being? What kind of property management company do you, are you? Those kinds of questions that give the foundation, because no relationship's built without trust. And so I would want to know, can we trust each other? That's really a big, important key factor, because you're going to have to trust me in a situation, because I'm handling your multi-million-dollar baby. And so there has to be a level of trust. And so that's what I look for when I'm interviewing a client as well, because it goes both ways. And there's sometimes where partners, like, it doesn't sync up. Philosophies are different. And so I'll ask those key questions. And I think the key questions that an investor should ask is, what are your best practices? What do you do? And I've had so many interviews with investors wanting to come on board with us that it needs to be reciprocal, it needs to be trusting, and it needs to be based on a relationship. And there needs to be a goal, a plan that's laid out. And truth and transparency is one of the biggest things. And we are big around here on transparency. If we know it, I want the client to know it. Not until we can solve it, but it happens. We know it, we solve it, we present the solution. It's never like, it doesn't drag on for weeks, and you shouldn't be surprised by anything that comes your way from us if we've been communicating right along. Like, we're never going to replace, I'll bring it to real life. We're never going to replace your boiler, and you're going to find out about it on your financials. You're going to hear about it the day that the boiler goes down. We're going to share those things with you, and then we're going to work on it together on how we plan on solving it.
That's great. Yeah. How often do you feel is communication necessary between an owner and a property manager?
It really varies, Kaylee. It depends on the asset. When we first take over an asset, our expectations are we need to be in more communication than normal. And I think after, though, you've established it and things are going in the right way and there's that trust level that's already been built, it needs to back off just a little, because I can sit on a call and get ready for a meeting, like a Zoom meeting for a report that you can already pull from the your software system, and I can talk about it and prepare for it. And that's what ends up happening for regionals. They prepare like for 2 or 3 hours for a meeting that it's only talking about regurgitating the information that already comes from a report. And then it takes them off of the main task of doing the main thing, which is being on site, walking vacant apartments, walking the property, collaborating with the team, finding out what the needs are from that level. And so I always say I'd rather be doing than talking.
Agreed. And then when things are going in the not right direction, how often do you think a call or, I don't know, FaceTime or whatever is appropriate?
I'm an open book, so I tell our clients.
Sorry. Because the bank has one idea, the owner has one idea, the person who's in it has another idea. Like, what?
Yeah, I think for me, it's the answer to that is however long it takes to get you comfortable with the situation that it's being addressed. So I don't. I always tell our clients we exist to make you money, solve your problems, and let you sleep while we can't. So to that degree, I just feel like whatever it's going to take to make you comfortable, and that that you can sleep, that you're going to make money, and that the situation is going to be solved. So we should be accommodating in that way to make you. Now, if it gets to the point with, somebody's just like nervous and they have no reason to be nervous, I don't have a problem with saying, hey, I think we need to, let's have a little cool down period because this is all going great. You're doing fantastic. You have nothing to worry about.
That's too funny because I understand that, you know what I mean? And I'm never that person, never have been that person. I hate micromanaging, and I actually sometimes even without enough trust, tell you the truth, I will just offload stuff and be like, go for it. You're the expert. I trust you. Do it. Prove me wrong. You know what I mean? And until that point happens, then I'm like, okay, now I have to work, but, I think I need to learn like a balance. But yeah, usually I'll just be like, here, like, yeah. And until there's a problem, but I'm like, if I'm looking at the reports and, which we get, monthly and everything's fine, like business plans being executed, whatever, So anyway, yeah, that's good. That's good to hear that when someone, has things working correctly and they can trust you, they can just put hands off, and that you're willing to help the client on the other end be comfortable. The same thing with us and our investors. Sometimes before they invest and sometimes while they're invested, some of them need more conversation than others. Some others don't want to be talked to. Some need a little bit more communication to be comfortable. And I never let that annoy me or get mad about it, because I'm like, if I put in the time right now, that establishes trust, and therefore we're going to have a long-term relationship. And so, yeah, I'm sure everybody appreciates that. Well, I have now gone over a little bit. That's okay, but I've gotten a ton of value out of this today, and I hope that this relationship, we can continue this. You've been very patient with me over time, where I have been a little bit slower now to get to know and to talk a little bit. And how about this? How about that? Appreciate that. But for our audience that's listening out there, thank you guys so much today, guys and gals, for tuning in. If you would like to get a hold of Miss Dawn, how can our audience get a hold of you?
Sure. My cell phone is always the best, and I don't have a problem with putting that out there if you're okay with it. My email address is dwaye@citygatepg.com. We have our website at citygatepropertygroup.com. My cell phone number is 214-223-6090. Now, if you have 1 million listeners, that might cause a problem. I'll probably be on the phone a whole lot, but I'm always available. You can just call the corporate office, and you will find that both Pat and myself are very accommodating and available.
Yes. Right now, don't worry about it. We have like 500, but we're growing. So again, thank you, listeners, for being here today with us and for being along our journey to help women to get out there more, to be stronger leaders, and to be able to support each other. I will see you guys again next week on Number One Leading Ladies.